as well. Are we recording? That is the question. Yes, maybe. Yes, you're recording. All right, wonderful. Welcome, everybody. All right, we're just gonna keep admitting. All right, welcome, everyone. We're so glad to have you here today. Thanks for being here. Welcome to our webinar today, where we will be discussing the 483 observations from the FDA in 2021. We're glad to have you here today for this free webinar that we offer every year. My name is Linda Marie Beitler with Pathwise, and I'll be moderating this webinar for the next hour. First off, I'd like to welcome any Pathwise license holders or certified trainers that we have here joining us. We're glad to have you. Also, before we get started, just a few housekeeping items as usual. You are all on mute to eliminate any background noise, but you have your Teams chat where you can type any comments or questions that you have as we go through. Also, just so you know, this is my first time using Teams for a webinar, so be patient with me. So I understand this platform for this functionality and with this many people. So this is a pretty big group that we have here. So so thank you for your patience. So we're going to go for about 45, 50 minutes. We have a really great presentation here for you today. I'm excited about it. After that, we'll open up the last little bit for any questions that you guys have. You're going to type your questions in that chat box for our instructor today. So just type away. Also, you're going to have access for the slides as well. Once we get going and we're done with our introduction, I will be uploading those into the chat section as well for you guys to download. So you'll have access to that as well. So, let me introduce Pathwise for you today. If you're unfamiliar with us, we've been around for over 20 years. We provide proven methodologies in quality and compliance through hands-on and practical solutions that ensure compliant, effective, and efficient quality systems. Our training helps to simplify necessary concepts and processes, ensuring a quality system program that conforms to industry and regulatory standards. And you can see there the topics that we cover in our training, cover the gamut for your quality system. So we do it through instructor-led and online training options. And so here you are as a part of our online option. So we're glad to have you here today. So that's a little bit about who we are. Now let me introduce our presenter today, Damon Linder. Damon is a seasoned quality professional with over 25 years of experience in engineering, sales, and project management. Damon holds an MBA from Tiffin University, a bachelor's in mechanical engineering from Kettering University. He's a certified project management professional from the Project Management Institute, and he's currently in the process of completing a doctorate in global leadership and change at Tiffin University. So soon to be Dr. Linder. That's exciting, Damon. He has extensive training and experience in CAPA, quality risk management systems, change management, and quality risk analysis tools, including the FMEA and FTA. Damon has used his experience from working in and with organizations who are in remediation with FDA and other regulatory bodies to address key concerns and share best practices. And I love when Damon works with us at Pathwise because he is an incredibly engaging trainer, and he makes some rather dry topics, like say from 483 observations, really engaging and interesting. And I'm excited also today because in almost 10 years of conducting webinars, as we use the Teams platform today, this is the first time we get to see your beautiful face during a webinar, which I think will make it even more engaging for all of the people that are here today. So I think that's exciting. So Damon, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you take it away. So
okay, thanks, Linda. So I thought I was going to have a problem with the Dr. Linder comment, but I'll take that over the video, because the video, seeing me is definitely no benefit to that for sure. But no, thanks for that introduction, Linda. I've been admitting people as they come in. So as you were kind of doing the intro, so why don't you go ahead and you do that as they go, because we still have a few people who are kind of coming in now. So this, as Linda said, is one of Pathwise's most popular webinars. I think that's the case for a couple reasons. First and foremost, probably, as Linda said, because it's free. That's always good. But in addition to that, it's an interesting topic, and it's one when I was working in industry and not training and consulting, I always was curious about too. Is, you know, just what's the pulse? What's going on? Has anything changed? And we've been doing this webinar for many years. So I welcome back any folks who've perhaps been here with the subject matter before. But what we wanted to do this year is do a couple things. We wanted to keep some of the things that we've been doing the same. We wanted to present the information that's been presented before, do a demonstration of the tools that are out there that you could use to even look at this information for yourselves as well, both, you know, at the beginning of the year now as kind of a year in review for the previous year, or as the year goes on, whatever is most important for you. But then I kind of wanted to change things up just a little bit. I wanted to not only look at what the results were, but do a very simplistic analysis, because as you guys are going to see, not a whole lot's changed. And I really think we can learn something from that. And I want to add in a pretty simple takeaway, but one that I think is pretty important as we get to the end, and change things up a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. But before we go through and I give away all the spoilers at the end, let's talk about what we're going to talk about. So first thing we'll do is we're going to review. We're going to talk about the Fda Data Dashboard, which if you've been a part of this webinar before, you're likely familiar with. If not, I'll give you a very brief introduction to it. It's just to kind of show you what it looks like so that you can then take that for yourself and look through the data. We're going to look at some 5-year data and also 1-year data. So what does that allow us to do? Obviously, it allows us to look back to the past and see how things from a general perspective, and this is not a statistics presentation in any way, but just looking at generic, almost anecdotal type trends, cursory things we can look at to see, you know, what is this telling us? What can we glean from this information, and what should we do with it? We're going to talk about patterns in doing so, just like that. And then I did pull in the resource and efforts and initiatives and influences from last year and this year, just so we can review that, even though, again, a little spoiler here, even though looking at that future stuff might not be the best thing we do with this data, because I think that little cursory analysis that we're going to do is going to tell us something a little bit different. So what's this review? Well, many of you, I'm sure, know this information by heart, but with a group as large as this one, right? I did think it would be a good idea just to revisit some of this terminology, perhaps for those of you who aren't as experienced in the industry, who are new to this discussion. So I just want to review what some of these key terms that we're going to be using are. And I got these directly from FDA website. So what's an inspection? Okay, inspection, assessment of regulated facilities to determine a firm's compliance with applicable laws and regulations, such as Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act and related acts. So when we are talking about the lens of an FDA inspection here, which obviously you know, can be broadened to a variety of different types of inspections that you're likely familiar with, but again, just to kind of normalize our discussion here and normalize our terms. As Linda said, we're going to talk about what are the most common 483s from last year. Well, what's a 483? What does that mean? An FDA Form 483 is issued to firm management at the conclusion of an inspection when an investigator or investigators observed conditions that in their judgment may be a violation. Okay? It's the notification to the company's management of the objectionable condition. At the conclusion of an inspection, FDA Form 483 is presented and discussed with the company's senior management. Okay, obviously, again, not a whole lot different in principle from any kind of list of observations that you get from whatever inspecting body is relevant to your organization, your business, etc. But again, just if you don't know 483, now you do. Progressing along what your other information we're going to be able to look at when we investigate the FDA data dashboard and we look into the data to try to find some trends, you'll also see a warning letter. When FDA finds that a manufacturer has significantly violated FDA regulations, FDA notifies the manufacturer. This notification is often in the form of a warning letter. Warning letter identifies the violations such as poor manufacturing practices, problems with claims for what a product can do, or incorrect directions for use, just examples, others as well, of course. The letter also makes clear that the company must correct the problem and provides directions in a time frame for the company to inform FDA of its plans for correction. So the observations were made, as we talked about in the Form 483 here. Then this is the formal notification of those observations. And the intention here, obviously, is to begin the process of both developing and ultimately implementing a plan, right, to use that information to generate solutions, corrective actions, etc. So what have we talked about so far? We've got FDA, in this case, coming in for an inspection. We've got our observations list at the conclusion of that inspection. And then it could be a situation where a warning letter is then formally sent to that organization to inform them of those findings. Well, there's another level that we can also look at the data dashboard relative to actions that are taken by FDA. And the next one is an injunction. An injunction is a civil judicial process initiated to stop or prevent the violation of law, such as to halt the flow of violative products in interstate commerce and to correct the conditions that cause the violation to occur. This is when the legal ramifications begin. And again, this isn't, of course, intended to talk about all the intricacies of FDA and Department of Justice and consent decree. It's just to say this is just another action, right, that we can also look at to see how frequently or not so frequently it's occurring within industry and different industry types, as well as different sections, regions, et cetera, which you'll all see. I just wanted to go through that quickly so that we're all normalized relative to the information here. So now that we went briefly through what these items are that we can look at in the FDA data dashboard, I'd like to introduce or reintroduce you to that dashboard, because again, this is something that you can take from our presentation, our quick, 45, 50-minute presentation here today, and you can expand and elaborate upon yourselves tremendously. Okay, there you can do so much more detailed analysis than we're going to do today yourself, and I'll show you that right now. Well, what is the data dashboard? FDA created the data dashboard, and this information is directly from the website. I'll show that you too in a second. To increase transparency and accountability by displaying and allowing the analysis of public FDA data through easy to use, visually accessible, customizable, and understandable graphics. So now just give me a moment to change our share, if you would, and I will then be able to show you what that dashboard looks like. So Linda, can we see that dashboard? Just a little quick check there.
Yep, you're on.
Great. All right. So
there.
Clicking on that link that you see that was just up, and again, if you just Google FDA data dashboard, you'll get it. You don't need to copy down that link or anything like that. It's very simple to get to. This is what it takes you to, and you can see if I scroll down, there's the little disclaimer instruction sheet that I just read to you. There's a variety of different ways to access this information. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here and just show you here. So, as we just discussed, inspections, and compliance actions. That's what we are talking about mostly today. You can also look up recalls as well, but I'm going to focus on inspections and compliance actions for now. If you click on the inspections tab here, guess what? You get a list of inspections. Now, again, I'm not going to go through a tremendous detail just because of the time that we have. I want to show you some key features though. When you pull up inspections, for example, it's going to give you some preset graphs, tables, etc. Now you could see as I'm scrolling there, I can, if I hover over the data, you can use your wheel or your mouse to scroll back and forth. Same here with this other data, okay? And so what's this telling us? It's giving us foreign and domestic inspections, first classified totals here, then by fiscal year here, and the classification by product type here, where we can see the actual product types, what the type of violations were, official, voluntary, and the citations. This is a kind of a, as it says, dashboard view of everything that you want to see. Now, it's important here to highlight the filters button. So we have the filters button here. If we click on the filter button, and this is true for any of the data sources that you're clicking on, any of the inspections or compliance actions, you can choose fiscal year, for example. Pretty straightforward. What years do you want, simply by clicking on or clicking off of those years. You can also choose the product type if you want. Biologics, devices, drugs, and that's the terminology I'm going to use, even if that's not necessarily the preferred terminology for everybody, just to keep it consistent between the presentation and the data dashboard. That's what I used in the presentation as well. And you can choose whatever item is relevant for you. For now, let's just take drugs, okay? And I'm going to click on that checkbox. And when I do so, as you can see, the data in the dashboard changes, and it simply reflects now the product type, drugs. Now, if we click on data tables, for example, it takes us down that sheet. You could, of course, scroll down as well. But I just want to highlight that you can get in to a very significant amount of detail relative to these inspections. Each one of these boxes is now searchable and sortable as well, with the addition of being able to download this information. 30,705 records for you to download if you choose. So this data is there. If you've been a part of any Pathwise training exercise, we often say, regardless of the training course, there's typically some discussion that this data, that the compliance actions, the work that we're doing, what you are writing is public record. Well, here's the evidence of it, right? Here's the evidence of it. In addition to inspections from a compliance dashboard perspective, we also have compliance actions. So what are the compliance actions? Well, what did we just talk about? We just talked about warning letters, injunctions. This also has seizures. Same filter choice here, same ability to download the data, but now specifically related to warning letters, injunctions, etc. And if you go to the filter here, you can filter by action type. So if you're interested specifically in warning letters, you can click on the warning letters. If you want to say, okay, of the warning letters, I'm concerned in warning letters associated with the device industry, you can click on that. And now you've filtered down your data to just that, okay? One additional item that the dashboard gives you is the ability to look at all of this information on a region basis. Now, I have a summary of that region basis in the PowerPoint, so I'm not going to go through that in great detail now, but I did want to at least illustrate to you that that information is also on the dashboard. Once again, scrolling down just a little bit further, instead of seeing inspection records now that we can enter into and learn more information about, now, because we've got it sorted to warning letters, now we're looking at warning letter data directly as well. So once again, this and it's fully downloadable and very easily workable in Excel if you do that. We didn't want to go again into the purpose here is not to drill into one particular industry or one particular source of information. It's to provide to you the feedback here that this information that we're about to talk about, if you want to look at it in greater detail and really customize it to give back to your organizations, I'm going to assume here, and I'm going to stop sharing for just a second because, again, that's just your quick overview of what this dashboard can do for you. But if we go back for one moment to Teams, if you'll just bear with me for 1 second. Okay. I'm assuming that most of you in one way or another are involved in some measure of compliance or quality for your organizations. This is a very, very easy way for you to build a case for how important the work that you are doing is, right? And it's all very easy to access, very easy to sort, very easy to get to. This is when a point, if we were interactive, I'd ask what questions do you have, but you can ask questions in the chat later. Again, just in a brief introduction, 10 minutes there or so, to inform you what the data dashboard is and what it can be used for. With that, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint now. And if we have some time at the end and there's some specific questions, we can go through and do that. But for now, we're going to go back to the PowerPoint here. So Linda, can I just confirm that that slide is back up on the screen now, please?
Yep, you're golden.
Great, thank you very much. And let's continue on now with this kind of assessment or look into what kind of I see as what's going on relative to this data. So let me first share with you, as you saw, we have the ability in the Fda Data Dashboard there to customize our filters. This slide is sharing with you how I customized my filters for the data which I'm about to present to you. So I chose fiscal years 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. Project area, all. Posted citation, all. Country area, all. Legal name, all. Simply because the prevailing kind of industry affiliation with respect to pathwise is biologics, devices, drugs. If there's someone else out there, if you're in a different industry, welcome, welcome, welcome. No offense, but I didn't include you. Also the classification type, which we could talk about in a minute, and then region and state all. So basically, I wanted everything from biologics, devices, and drugs from 17 to 21 with respect to inspections. Well, what does that yield? Well, one of the charts that yields is now shown on the screen in front of you. And there's I've been to school for a while, but I'm no statistician, but you know, this is pretty clear, I think. Right? You don't need an advanced degree in statistical analysis to see what's happening on this chart. From 2017 to 2021, the number of both domestic and foreign inspections, according to the filtering that we've just discussed, has significantly dropped. FDA is performing far less inspections. If we look at those inspections based on classification, right, you can then filter that to see of those inspections, how many were no action indicated, or the green line, meaning no objectionable conditions or practices were found, right? A voluntary action indicated, that's the yellow line, meaning objectionable conditions or practices were found, but there wasn't any actions that need to be taken at this time. Finally, official action indicated, meaning that actions will be recommended. So there it's just saying of all of those inspections, what was found on those inspections. Okay, good. And we can also, and again, this is a standard chart from that Fda Data Dashboard, so we can also drill that down or extract the industry types that we're looking for. And here you can see a bar chart that just breaks that into biologics, devices, and drugs as well. Same data, just looking at it from a variety of different ways that you can see. If we want to do a very, like I said, top level view here, what we're seeing is of these inspections, right? There's quite a bit, right, where there's some situations where the inspections are going pretty well, I would say. Now, there's also some actions that need to be taken, and you can drill down more for your industry type there. Similarly, we can look at the regions, and I just wanted to put this up because what you're seeing here on the screen now is the region information from first 2017, that's that 4,000 number, to more recently the 2021, the 1,300 number. And of course, as you might expect, if there's fewer inspections, those inspections are taking place, right, in fewer locations. Pretty straightforward, but just, hey, we're looking at the observations, we're looking at the trends for what we're seeing today, and this is what we're seeing in it, and I think it kind of makes sense. Now, that's just general inspection data. Takeaway being less inspections are being conducted. Well, let's now dig into that data just a little bit more that is, again, available on that data dashboard. Well, let's look at the 483s that have been issued over that same time period for biologics, devices, and drugs. And now what you'll see is being in that inspection, or in those inspections, there are fewer 483s, which would make sense. But if we start looking at the numbers, I'm not so sure that the number of 483s that are being issued are going down with the same rapidity, right, that the inspections are. And that could be a cause for concern if we're talking about fewer inspections, but a relatively larger percentage of 483s, and you know what that is based on our review at the beginning, being found or identified, then that could be an indication of some lesser compliance and poor quality. We could also look for year over year on broken out by industry, just like we did with the inspections. Again, this information is given to you on that data dashboard, so you can pull your inspections from your particular industry, you can pull your 483s from your particular industry, and you can look at this in great detail to see what these trends are. Now, what I want to do now, though, is really dig into this data and say, okay, for each of these industry types, what were the top 5 483s? This, I think, maybe is what you guys are really interested in, right? When we have this discussion of what happened last year, well, let's look at the top 5 from last year. 2021, biologics warning 483s, top 5. And let me explain this PowerPoint just for a second, because the subsequent PowerPoint slides for drugs and devices will follow the same method. So basically what I did is I took the 2021 observation count here, okay? And biologics being our first one, the industry is smaller, there's far fewer numbers, but don't worry about that. Establish, maintain, and follow manufacturing SOPs. There were 7 observations in 2021. That means it's the #1 rank for 2021. And guess what? It was the #1 rank for 2020 as well. Donation suitability was a 21. There were 3 observations. The 2021 rank is #2. There was no ranking for 2020. Concurrent documentation, 2021 observations 2. The rank is a 3-way tie for 3rd, right? And last year it was 2nd in a tie. What is this basically saying? If we look at the 2021 rank and the 2020 rank, it's the same. Maybe a little bit of moving around from 1 to 2 or 3 to 4 or 4 to 2, whatever. But these items are no different than 2020. For biologics, what was in the top 5 last year essentially is in the top 5 this year as well. Of that, those top 5 account for 44% of the total observations. 44%. Well, let's do the same thing for devices now. And again, if you dig into this data on the data dashboard, you'll be able to pull the specific codified numbers. If you want that, that's all there. We're trying to kind of keep a top level overarching view in our quick 45-50 minute discussion today. So I'm not going to go through that, but that information is available to you clearly if you have a particular item that you want to look for. But let's just look through and generally here with respect to devices as well. 2021 rank 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2020 rank 1, 2, 4, 3, 8. All I needed to do to get all of the same observations, right? The top 483s here on one chart was go to number 7. I hope that's clear, because once again, we're seeing the same thing. Those observations that were in the top 7, 8, let's say, okay, for 2020 are those that were in 2021 as well. And if we looked at our total observations now, and here we can start to see, higher numbers simply because more inspections, more organizations, larger industry type, but still the top 5 items, right, which again are essentially the same as last year, account for about 27% of the total. Those of you, like I said, who I think are in attendance here, who are working in quality and compliance, probably see where I'm going now. If you've ever had a CAPA training course with Pathwise and we've talked about Paretoing things out, I think you see where we're going here, right? Let's do the same analysis for drugs. This one's even easier. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 1, 2, 4, 3, 6, 5, 21 to 20. What does it mean? It means, again, I only had to go through 6 or so, right, to get all of the same observations. All of the same observations, okay? You may be curious about what percentage here, just to finish off our discussion, 22% approximately account for that top 5. Now, I haven't specifically said it because we're going to come back to that. We're going to get to this towards the end in just a few minutes. But I hope you can see as I'm presenting these slides what the short descriptions of these 483s were. Because if you're observing them here on our drugs slide, it's essentially the same for our devices slide and our biologics slide with respect to the type of finding, the type of issue that we are identifying. And it's pretty easy to see that type. Procedures, investigations, written procedures, controls, okay? When we went through the data dashboard, we also went to, from the 483 observations, to warning letters and inspections. So I simply pulled that information as we went through in the data dashboard as well. So from 2016 to 2020, right? And I know that's 1 year back. We'll get to why we did that in a second. There were a total of 1,118 compliance actions, which in this case is made up of warning letters, injunctions, and seizures. 2017 to 2021, there was 1,102 compliance actions, right? So in that situation, right, we're dealing with a pretty similar number. But what's happening to the inspections? Remember back? In the data dashboard, let's just put that into a bar chart, same basic information, reflect back on the inspections now. Inspections dropping off significantly. Compliance actions, not so much. If we wanted to look by, this was fiscal year. If we wanted to look by product type, we could do the same thing. Biologics, devices, drugs, right? We can also look to separate that information out by it specifically by injunction or seizure, okay? Same point I want to make. The data is all there. You can drill down to the very details of all of this by industry type, by compliance action type, et cetera, and so forth. But the bottom line is it's not really changing. And that's really one of the biggest takeaways that we want you to take from this as well. Okay, final slide here, just looking at the raw data is injunctions and seizures by product types as well. So you can mix and match this data however you want. Again, just because of the interest of time, we couldn't really drill, extremely deeply into this, but I'm hoping that just through that kind of top level analysis, you saw the same parallels in the information that I did. All right. Now, I want to kind of make a transition now and talk about what we've talked about maybe in the past relative to this webinar. And in the last year's webinar, these are the 2021 focus areas specifically around are given by FDA for this past year. What was of interest? This is what we at Pathwise presented to you guys regarding what we thought the focus areas from looking at FDA's stuff were going to be. And they included emergency use authorization, QSR and 13485 alignment, the Safer Technologies Program, medical device servicing and remanufacturing, additive manufacturing, cybersecurity, etc. These are great stuff, interesting stuff, pretty high level stuff. I don't see a lot of basics there. Okay, let's take that out. I tried to do, to the best of my ability, just some cursory searching through FDA journals, speeches, etc. What can I get any kind of a glimpse of maybe what the prevailing talking points are for this year? And what I pulled from that was public health and consumer protection, modernizing the agency to keep pace with science and technology, emergency preparedness and response, obviously due to, current conditions, with respect to health and the situation in the world today. Again, lots and lots of very interesting stuff, meaningful stuff, but a complete lack of any focus on the basics once again. So my question to you guys, and this is maybe where this year's presentation, and I got Linda's permission to do this, and she was okay with it, so we'll see. If there's a lot of blowback, maybe we'll get in trouble, Linda. I don't know. Nate will get mad at us. But I'm going to ask the question, should we even be talking about what's new? It's important. I'm not trying to say it's not important. But when we look at this data with the assumption that you are quality and compliance professionals, and we are looking to this data to try to understand what we ought to do to effect change in our organizations, I'm not sure talking about what's new is really the right way to proceed. Okay. From 2021, we said, what are the kind of resource allocations that we should be doing? Well, procedures, documentation, equipment, investigations, validations, training. So we're spending a lot of money, a lot of time on doing these things, right? But those are precisely the things that are driving the observations, the warning letters, presumably the injunctions, right? If we pull out the #1 observation from biologics, devices, and drugs, establish and maintain and follow manufacturing SOPs, lack of inadequate procedure, especially with respect to CAPA. So those of you involved in the CAPA world from a devices perspective, yes, once again, you can tell everybody that CAPA was #1. Drugs, procedures, not in writing, fully followed. And all of those observations are #1 again. No change from last year. And if we pulled the data from previous years, it would be ostensibly no change from the previous years either. So we at Pathwise, and I presume you and your organizations, have a tendency to say if it isn't written down, it didn't happen. And that is absolutely a tenet of the industry that we're in. But I'm afraid that maybe some of that, because of it's the frequency with which we use the term, some of the teeth associated with that term are not necessarily as sharp as they used to be. We've known that that's the case, and we've known it for years. But what I'm saying now is we need to relook at this. We need to relook at if it's written down, it didn't happen, and take it another step further. We need to be more specific. We should be asking, what should be written down? How should it be written down? What are the mistakes that are being made that drive all of those observations that we're seeing every year, right? Obviously, we're humans. Mistakes are made. If a mistake is made, what should we do about it so that it doesn't turn into an observation, a warning letter, an injunction, etc., right? So deeply considering those 4 questions here of what, how, what, and what, right? What can we do? What? Any information used in manufacturing, testing, packaging, holding, distribution, device, that's the what. The how, right? If we want to improve, if we want to tell people how to do it, just like we do in our Pathwise technical writing course, that information needs to be well documented, unbiased, thorough, timely, and scientifically defensible. If there are mistakes, right, deal with guesswork, get correct signatures, deal with the timing, have a revision control system that's functioning and up to date, right? Fixes, correct it properly and quickly, single line, initial date, okay? This is information that I know the vast majority of those of you who are on this webinar now know. The problem is the data that we're looking at isn't bearing out the fact that we're doing anything about it. So what we're saying this year, at least Linda and I won't throw Nate under the bus. If you agree with everything that we've said here, then Nate's involved too, the owner of Pathwise. If you disagree and think this was baloney, then it's just me and Linda, okay? So what we are talking about this year and the focus that we think at Pathwise, at least Linda and me, that we should be doing here this year is getting back to these fundamentals, engaging our people in our organizations to focus on these fundamentals, right? Attack those observations. Remember I said we're Paretoing those out? These kind of fundamental error-related documentation, procedural type findings are accounting for between 20 and 30% of all of the observations, right, that are being observed. So if we can get rid of these, which should be essentially simpler to fix than more systemic ones, right? It's going to free us up a whole lot of time to work on stuff that's more important. The other point that I would like to make with respect to fundamentals is looking at that inspection data and looking at the fact that fewer inspections are being performed. If you do have procedural documentation type errors and you're not getting the scrutiny from the agency and you're not scrutinizing those procedures and documentation issues yourself, they are going to become greater and greater, and they will build upon themselves. And the problem there may become what starts as perhaps a fairly small or manageable procedural or documentation issue, if left alone to fester for a year or 2 or longer because of inadequate either internal or external inspections, could potentially turn into a serious system-related issue as well. So with that, we're going to open up the floor to any questions now. I wanted to do about 45 minutes, which is where we're at. And so Linda just popped right back up here on the screen. So I hope that you enjoyed this very, very brief kind of introduction to the data that's available to you through the data dashboard and my interpretation of what the results were from last year. And I encourage you to go to that dashboard, pull that data and do some analysis yourself and use that in your organizations, right, as perhaps a justification to take a look back at the fundamentals for this year. Thanks very much for your attention. I'll pass it back over to you now, Linda.
Thank you so much, Damon. I think it's, oh, I'm echoing.
Here, I'll turn on mute.
Sorry there. All right, there we go. I think it's really great insight and super interesting. And actually, if you look even past beyond, you know, the last 2 years, last 5 years, last 10 years, it's actually the same, the same information, right? So, so that's really, really great insight. So if anyone has questions, type them away in the chat for you. We're going to ask Damon. And I have a couple questions for you, Damon, while everyone else gets their juices flowing. My question for you is, oh, sorry, we're still echoing. How do we actually get started looking at the basics? Where do you recommend people start?
I'm going to turn, maybe it's my volume that's doing it. Let me turn my speaker volume down. So that's that. So, you know, I thought about this. I thought about this as I was putting it together, and I think really it comes down to training, and I think that, you know, it's still early in the year. Try some training initiatives. Try some, you know, formal, if you can. Doesn't have to be a week-long training with 500 people. Lunch and learns, basic information to just try to maybe provide a refocus on these fundamentals. Oftentimes this is information, again, that's known, but maybe it's just in a back compartment or file somewhere. So even like a newsletter, lunch and learn, little quick video that you blast out through your company, you know, social or other portals, things like that. Great,
great. Do you think that inspection frequency will increase in 2022?
That's a tough question. My gut feeling is yes. Okay. But that's all there. There's no, that's anecdotal as well, because for me, I have to believe that the agency is looking at the dashboard too. Now, obviously there are resource limitations and physical limitations, and I understand all that, but I just got to believe that somebody at the agency is going to be looking at that data. They'll parse out that inspection data, and somebody's going to say, I don't like the looks of this chart. That's going to happen at some point. And when it does, I think inspections are going to start to come up, because obviously quality is our #1 driving force, but simply from an optics perspective, those aren't great optics either.
Yeah, great. All right, looks like we have one question. What is the FDA's thinking on digital signatures? Can we type on Word docs on a laptop, or should we Adobe sign on PDFs before sending out a SCAR to a supplier to seek their signature?
Well, that's a very specific question that I would, of course, any good trainer is going to give you the same answer to that. You got to look at your industry, your expectations, your systems, and your procedures. From my personal experience, I have seen PDF electronic signature, but Word I've not seen as much. Simply because at least up until now, I don't think that signature type has been considered to be as valid, but that's kind of an anecdotal observation from just my work and my consulting. It depends on that situation and how you proceduralize it and what communication you're making, I would say too. If that corrective action report is going as a sort of you know, warning letter from you to your supplier, for example, that's just going to depend on how you proceduralize that communication, which of course do that. But, you know, and I agree, there are compliant software packages and compliant signature types built into PDFs. That's just something you got to buy. I think the question is more along the lines, at least the way I interpreted the question is, for that very specific situation where you're sending something to the supplier, should you be electronically signing it or not? And I guess to me, that's a judgment call based on, you know, the issue and what your procedures are, et cetera.
Someone else commented and said DocuSign is a validated system
Right.
used PDFs. So
And there are other validated signatory systems as well.
yeah, great. All right, here is a new question. What is the latest on the FDA shifting from computer system validation to computer system assurance, building a risk-based approach? What is the timing?
So I can't answer the timing. I mean, I have no idea. I don't think if anyone who wasn't directly involved in that work said that they knew, that would be conjecture. So unfortunately, I can't give you that. What I would say though is the one thing that we can say from a consulting and an industry perspective is the integration of risk-based principles and being able to demonstrate that you made risk-based decisions with respect to every action, every procedure, every system within your organization, that is well known. So integrating risk concepts, right, into whatever your electronic systems are, right, is something that I think that we could all say is an expectation now. Specific timing of how things are going to migrate from past ways of assessment to future ways of assessment, I apologize. I simply can't answer. Now, I would say though, because these have been some great questions, but very, very specific electronic questions. I parsed the data. I looked at some to prepare myself for this training course. I dug into those details in the data dashboard. At least from my observation, that's not the stuff that's the issue, folks. Agreed, great questions, love it. But not what's driving those, at least from my analysis. The reason why I put that fundamental slide up there is because the majority of the observations were, you said you were going to do this, you didn't do this, observation. You said you wrote down this, you didn't write down this, observation. So again, I'm harping on the same thing over and over again here, but that was my purpose for today's session, is good stuff, focus for the future, but focus on the easy stuff too, folks, because it's the easy stuff. If you dig in the data, it's the quote, easy stuff that's getting screwed up.
Yeah. Great. All right. Any other questions? We have some people that maybe were past colleagues that have reconnected in the chat. Pathwise webinars, bringing people together. I love it. All right. Let's see. The next question. Do you know the latest on EU Annex 11?
I can't, I'm not going to specifically speak to any
one.
Specific, I mean,
okay.
You know.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, here's a good one. When it comes to addressing 483s that are those in the top 5, are there any tips on how to ensure that responses and CAPAs are accepted and successable?
That's
That's
a question. And again, I don't mean to diminish any question. It's not that's not my intention at all. I just, that's the kind of thing I think we can discuss and answer in this particular venue. And my answer to that would be, number one of the things that we do, I'm sorry, Linda, turn off your speaker so you can't hear this. I'm going to give away the keys to Pathwise. We look at observations in a lot of the training courses that we do, both for compliance, just compliance level stuff, but also remediation. Now, when we're doing remediation activities, we could use perhaps some of the observations from that organization. But even in our standard compliance training and our standard training for folks who perhaps aren't in remediation situations, of the majority of the Pathwise training courses that we put on, be they CAPA, risk, technical writing, etc., right, all have a measure in the introduction of example observations. This is what the agency has said, specifically related to CAPA, specifically related to technical writing, specifically related to XYZ. My opinion, start there. Go to your industry in the data dashboard. Pull out those 483 observations that are relevant. you can dump them right to Excel. Do some keyword searches, do find and replaces, see what's being said, and then use that information to develop your own, perhaps, best practices, things to look for, right? What's happening that other people are doing wrong? Look at perhaps old observations if such things exist for you. So for me, to answer that question, I would say use the data that we have available, right? And develop some kind of action items. If you see this, then this is what you should do. So I hope that answers the question.
Great. Someone just
asked,
and
Rayanne Howard just I'm sorry, Linda, just put in the chat. I saw popped up internal audits, inspections. Yes. What I said, it accompanied with what she said. 100% agreement there.
Great. Someone just asked, can you share your presentation with us? If you scroll back to the beginning of the chat, there is a link that will take you to a place where you will be able to access a PDF to the presentation. So just scroll on back to the top of the chat. All right, we have 3 minutes left. What else you got for us?
Well, let me, if there's no other questions, I'd like to elaborate. I think it was Rayanne, what she said. That was really, I think that's an excellent, that's a very important distinction, and one that I'm going to should have been in that presentation more. When we're looking at the fundamentals, we have to incorporate our own internal inspections, audits, etc. Sorry, Linda.
No, I was just going to say if someone just popped in with a new question too.
Yeah.
All right. I'm auditing many companies at a global level, and I find a growing resistance of management to enhance quality right now. Do you think there's a change in the approach of management to quality also due to the reduced number of inspections?
I do. I personally do. And that's why I made the comment about not being lax. And what I would, what I have said in similar conversations previously, the tact that I took, whether it works or not, who knows, but the tact I take is that one to say, okay, you can ignore your quality issues now, but what are they going to turn into a year or 2 or 5 from now if you continue to ignore them? And I think, and maybe this is something we should do, or we could perhaps even do for next year, Linda, I think that if inspections don't come up, I told you that I thought that they would, but who knows? I don't know. If they don't, and we continue to see a reduction, I think it's very possible that we will see sort of that same cyclical event where perhaps when there was lack of oversight 20, 30 years ago, when we started to really put a more focus on overarching quality systems, but didn't have the teeth or the inspection capabilities by the agency to enforce them. And then all of a sudden, nothing really happens. And then boom, inspections go up, warning letters go up, and there's a reactive, approach by industry. I think it's very plausible that if the inspections stay down and quality is not continued to be emphasized, that we enter into that same cycle again, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see what will happen. Yvonne just asked, why are EU requirements stricter than FDA expectations? Do you think that's true?
I'm not going to touch that one. I'll tell you why. Because here's why. Because Linda gave you my background. I started in automotive and then migrated to medical device, and now I consult for pharma and med device. There was a time, right, when everyone I'll speak only for myself. When I entered that medical device company, right, after working in automotive for 15 years, what they thought was strict guidelines, they didn't have a clue. Just straight up, people, okay? It's a very subjective thing. So I'm not going to quote whether this is stricter than that. What we have to focus on is how those regulations affect us, affect our organization and our industry, and then design quality systems to be compliant to those. I don't like to focus on is med device different than, because I'll tell you what also, folks, when I go to med device, you should hear what they say about the pharma folks. When I go to pharma, you should hear what they say about the med device folks. You know what I'm saying? So to me, I don't even go there. What are your regs? How best can you be compliant to those regs? What systems do you have to demonstrate those to compliance? Whether it's the agency documents, EU documents, Japan documents, it doesn't matter, right? Focus on yourself is my recommendation and how you fit to those without really emphasis being placed on which one is harder, softer, stronger than that. Because then you get into a whole ball of wax that, you know. It's
Perfect.
like saying whose dog is the cutest, Linda. Come on. Everybody knows my dogs are the cutest.
Well, I was just going to say, we all know it's mine. So, you know. All right. Well, our time is up. Damon, thank you so much for this engaging, great presentation. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. Thank you for coming today. And everyone, enjoy the rest of your day. Go forth and conquer and get back to those basics.
Fundamentals.
Back to fundamentals. All right.
Take care.